All right. Excuse me. Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing? Got an interesting comment on a recent video from Tippy Bear, which is a cool name. And in the comment, this commenter said that the commenter identified his or herself as a Christian and said that if I had any questions as to why this person as a Christian believes that Jesus is the Messiah, I could address them with the questions. I'll be honest with you, I work with Christians, I work with Muslims, I work with people who practice Native American spirituality, I work with Wiccans and Buddhists and Asatru practitioners and all kinds of Jehovah's Witnesses and all kinds of different religions. I'm quite familiar with the claims, and I'm quite comfortable with the reasons why I do not accept these beliefs. I respect people of other religions. I think that religion, all religions really, can be a very positive force in the world. It doesn't matter which religion it is. What matters more is how do people use the religions. If people use the religions as a means to better society, better themselves, connect to God, it's wonderful. If people use them as tools or as weapons for negative activity, I don't care if it's my own religion. Now, I oppose it. Now, I don't think it's a negative thing, though, that these members of my own religion are opposing this channel, God TV. I just think that as a libertarian, it's not a proper thing to do. I don't think it's a negative thing to do. I just simply think it's not proper for various reasons. Furthermore, it makes people look weak in their faith, meaning to say, if we are sure enough of our apologetics, which to me, the Jewish apologetics are the most convincing apologetics in the world, in all of world religion. But I recognize that's what works for me, and not everybody's the same, and other people have other reasons. First of all, why they believe in a particular religion. It's not always apologetic arguments that win hearts to faith. And I think really the truth is that if someone's entire faith is built on apologetics, it's weak in and of itself, meaning apologetics should not be the reason that someone embraces a particular faith. I think there has to be an emotional aspect as well. That was a major pothole there. Are we still running? All right. Yeah. Hope we didn't. Let's look at our tire pressure. All right. Still pretty good. So I'm not saying that that's the be-all and end-all. Because if it's all about apologetics, and it's very easy to go somewhere else. If something else comes along, the same things with relationships, with all kinds of things in life. That's not the reason why we do things. With all that being said, I am utterly convinced that Jesus is not the Jewish Messiah. And I'm also utterly convinced that the definition of the word Messiah in Christianity is radically different than the definition of Messiah in Judaism. And so, of course, a Christian is going to believe that Jesus is the Messiah. That's the fundamental core of Christianity. But that identity, and also, furthermore, I think it's fitting and proper for any Christian who takes their faith seriously to follow what Christians call the Great Commission, to share what they believe to be this gospel with the world. I'm not offended by that in any way. I recognize that that's what you're supposed to do if you follow that religion. And I follow a different religion, and I politely disagree. A number of years ago, I was listening to a Christian radio show from a particular person who tends to try to conflate Judaism and Christianity, and that would be Dr. Michael Brown. And Dr. Brown admitted on his show, when he was asked by a Christian, when was Jesus anointed? Where do we find in the Gospels an account of the anointing of Jesus as Messiah? We find the account of his baptism, but not of his anointing. And Dr. Brown's answer was, quite honestly, that the definition of Messiah in Christianity means something different than it traditionally means in Judaism. And so just like Mormons use a lot of language that other Christians use, and yet other Christians generally will say Mormons are not Christians because they don't accept the Trinity and so forth. And then you have, and for various other reasons as well. And then the truth is, Muslims say Jesus is the Messiah. But for them it means something different than what it means for Jews, and it means something different than as what the word Messiah means for Jews, and it means something different than what it means for Christians that Jesus is the Messiah. These words are used in different religions and in different traditions in different ways, the same word. So and I don't really believe that the average Christian believes that Jesus is the Messiah because of Isaiah 53 or because of Isaiah 14 or all these Isaiah 7, all these various, or Psalm 22 and so forth. I think Christians believe Jesus is the Messiah because they're Christians. And after that, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but then they go back to the text and like, wow, look what I found. Even though that's not what the context of these scriptures mean. If one would read them, the whole chapter in context, the whole passage in context. And sometimes they're deliberate mistranslations and so forth. Which doesn't really bother me that much. I know a lot of people are bothered by that. They feel that it's cultural appropriation. I'm not that offended by cultural appropriation. It doesn't bother me that much if I don't know, if a model in Paris wears a Streimel or a Bekische. It doesn't, and so too, I'm not offended by this. I'm just going to stand my ground and have my apologetics and explain why it's not, but it doesn't even need to be explained when someone like Michael Brown, who constantly tries to conflate Judaism and Christianity, and for that I blame the Jews who will recognize such a thing as a secular Jew, as an atheist being a Jew, which as far as I'm concerned they're not. There's no such thing as a secular Jew. There's no such thing as an atheist Jew. There's such a thing as a former Jew who's an apostate who doesn't become a Gentile. That's indeed true. You know, when people say once a Jew, always a Jew, what it means is that once a Jew, you're never a Gentile. You can become a Jew, you can't become a Gentile. That doesn't mean, but with that, you can still lose an aspect of your Jewishness that these people who are just happen to be born Jewish, but if they don't believe in God, or they don't believe the Torah's from heaven and so forth, if they openly and wantonly desecrate the Sabbath, they don't even mark the Sabbath in any way as a special day. That's what I mean by desecrate this. I don't mean someone who drives to shul on Shabbos. That's not what we mean by Machal Shabbos B'Frasio. Like Chacham Ovadia says, as long as someone says the words Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbat, someone says Mekadesh HaShabbos, they recognize that God sanctified the Sabbath day, then they're already part of the Jewish people. But without that, they're not. All right, I understand there are people who are ignorant, this and that. But it's our job to teach them, and instead of complaining that they might become Christians and that they might be fooled by people who are, I agree. It's a problem that they're engaging in false advertising. There certainly is a dishonesty in these people who try to conflate Judaism and Christianity as being the same thing. On one hand, but on the other hand, and the major issue of it is that the Christian tradition speaks out against the Judaizers. That's central to Paul's doctrine, is to be opposed to Judaizing. And that's essentially what these Messianic movements are about, are essentially Judaizing in some form or another. And it's really the way that a lot of these missionaries operate is inconsistent with basic Christianity. However, I recognize that people have the right to make their own religions, and just like a regular Catholic or Protestant will say that a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness is not a Christian because they're not Trinitarian, they might say that some of these Messianic groups who might be Trinitarian or might not be Trinitarian are also not part of their church. And that's just how the world works. It's just how it is. So I don't really have any questions as to why someone who is a Christian believes Jesus the Messiah. I know all the verses that people like to quote, and I also know that I also have answers to all of those, and I don't think they're even really necessary, because I know that just as much, perhaps really more so than the rabbis who are opposing this and not opposing other things are being slightly hypocritical, the Christians who don't, who really take Paul's word seriously, are even being more hypocritical and being dishonest. At least the rabbis are being honest. So I know I'll just offend everybody. I still love everybody. I don't mean this in an offensive way. I'm pointing something out that maybe certain people didn't even realize at the time. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. We'll see you later.